It's a little harder whenever it is life stuff. It hurts my back whenever I sit at my desk for more than 20 minutes, but I have a sedentary office job and I need to get work done. And it's like, what do I do?
Today's guest is someone many of you will already know, especially if you're one of the hundreds of thousands who follow his content online. Dr. Jacob Harden is a US-based chiropractor and performance specialist who has built a huge global audience by breaking down complex rehab and training ideas into clear and practical advice. He studied human biology at the University of Texas, then earned his Doctor of Chiropractic degree at Palmer College in Florida, graduating top of his class. He's the founder of Prehab 101, a system designed to help people move better, train smarter, and build resilient bodies through intelligent strength work. With over 500,000 followers across Instagram and YouTube, Dr. Harden has become one of the most trusted voices in the rehab space, especially for active people who want to stay pain-free and performing at their best. It's a real privilege to have him on here today. And Dr. Harden, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. Harden. I've worked with several different specialities in my career: osteos, doctors, physiotherapists. Often treatments can be passive with very little or no rehab, beyond a patient having a sheet of exercises or a TheraBand. Your treatments take place in an exercise-focused environment, with the patient doing their rehab at the same time as your treatments. How central is that to your treatment philosophy?
It's very central to it. It's, I would say, the center of it for sure. My treatment philosophy, to just kind of, I guess, expand on that to get started, is really, it's built on this idea that rehab is about restoration. And so when I see an injury or pain or whatever it is, I look at it as a change in your physiological state. Like, you were able to do something and now you got an injury. You're now not able to do that thing. And it's done something, it's become bad enough in your life that you're ready to do something about it. My job now is to help figure out how do we close that gap. And so all I'm looking for is, how do I close that gap? And what tools do we need to utilize? And like, I'm not going to sit here and talk down on, the passive care, hands-on therapy, that we often see. That gets a lot of people better. But it doesn't get everyone better, and it takes you up to a point. So really, as I'm thinking about closing this gap for people, I'm looking at, where are you now relative to where you want to go? And it just so happens that the majority of the clients that I work with, the people that resonate with the content that I'm putting out there, the people that seek me out, tend to be a little bit more active. They tend to be athletes, and those people tend to have a higher demand on kind of that end of the spectrum. And so whenever we just get the pain down, whether that's through, say, manual therapy or spinal manipulation or rest, whatever you want to do. And maybe it's some light bodyweight exercises, stretches that could be handed out on a white sheet. That gets you somewhere, right? And it probably gets you back to the point that I'm walking around in my day-to-day life. It feels okay, but then I go and I try to stress my body to a little bit higher degree, whether that's in the gym or back on the field or wherever it is. And all of a sudden, I'm still feeling it. Like, it didn't really solve my problem, this problem that was internal to me. And so that's where all I'm really doing is trying to just continue the process. And for a lot of the clients that end up walking in my doors, they've been through those early stages before they got to me. And they found the frustration of like, is there nothing else? Like, I don't feel like I got where I needed to go. And so we built the gym out into our clinic. I spend, half of my eval is putting people under load with weights and, having them move around into some of those higher demands, figuring out where their pain tolerances are, what modifications need to be made. And then we build the plan that helps them move forward. So, long-winded answer, like, it's very central to the philosophy, because the clients that I work with, that's the demand that they have, and that's where we need to get them to.
That's brilliant. I mean, I remember going back a long time ago when I used to play football, and I went to go and see a physio back then, all those years ago. And it was only after a certain amount of running that the injury came on. But when I was going to see
Right.
him, it was kind of straight after school or something like that, and I'd been rested. So the injury wasn't really presenting how it usually presents. So his first thing was exactly that, right? Okay, let's get you running. Let's get you to replicate what causes your pain. So that's great. Okay, yeah,
Yep.
brilliant. I think when we first start out, I know I did personally when I first graduated and I went out into to treating people. Scariest thing is dealing with people in pain. So what's your go-to? What do you like to do with patients with pain, and how do you kind of get them over that barrier of working through some degree of pain?
I I take a very long-winded history with my patients, and one of the like biggest things that I'm trying to get glean kind of from them is what makes it hurt. Like when do you feel it? If I had you go and just try and show me the pain right now, what is that? And those questions and that piece of information is really, I think, our quickest way to really make a noticeable impact on their pain. So, I mean, I have a kind of a personal opinion that the majority of rehab is just structured behavior modification. And, you know, most of us probably don't seek out help for the majority of aches and pains that we feel. You wake up with a little crick in your neck and it's like, oh, it really hurts me whenever I turn my head to the right. You probably just kind of don't turn your head to the right for a little bit. And then and by doing, like staying off of that, it kind of naturally starts to calm down. Like those processes that are going on under the skin happen. And then you test it every now and then. That wasn't so bad this time. And like if you weren't worried about it, you kind of naturally poke the bear and you kind of naturally poke back into those motions. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I could turn my head again. Oh, amazing. Natural history. It works, right? And I think where what I tend to see is people that struggle are people that fall on kind of they deviate from that on either end of the spectrum. You get people that really get kind of worried, anxious about the pain. Maybe they've been told certain things, or maybe they have a past history of injuries, or they had a family member who dealt with certain things, right? Or maybe the pain's just like really, really bad and it has them worried. That ends up kind of classically being our persistent avoidance. And those people we have to calm and kind of graded exposure and slowly poke the bear, you know? And other people I get, they're like my classic athletes. They're bull in a china shop. And like, I banged my head into the wall and and it hurt. So I kept banging it into the wall. And guess what? It still hurts. Well, yeah, no duh. Right. So for those people, we tend to like pull them back. And so, you know, that's where I start is like, how are you coping with pain? What kind of behaviors have you taken on secondary to your pain? Um, and where is it feasible that we change? So, like, it's easier, honestly, whenever it's gym stuff because we can make a ton of exercise modifications. It's a little harder whenever it is life stuff. Like, it hurts my back whenever I sit at my desk for more than 20 minutes, but I have a sedentary office job and I need to get work done. And it's like, what do I do? And we can recommend little work breaks all day long, but maybe they don't have the opportunity to do that. So maybe we try other little things like an ergonomic modification of, hey, maybe you try slouching more. Maybe you try sitting up taller. Maybe you use a back support, whatever it is. And we really just work with whatever we have in those situations. So I look at what is your personal trigger? How are we going to modify that trigger? Because let's attack the thing that actually is triggering the pain. And the trigger may not be whatever the cause is, right? The cause may be the strained hamstring. The trigger is running beyond a certain distance or a certain amount of time, right? So in the short term, the thing that we need to do is manage that training volume or maybe manage your speed and your effort level, and that then in turn manages the pain in the here and now. And then we will use the rehab program and we'll kind of gradually dose that up as you become more tolerant to it. And and then you'll be able to do more things. And so we're just like short term modify now, long term build forward. And I have some rules in place that I use. Like whenever I'm rehabbing people, I think like our literature is pretty clear that pushing into pain is not necessarily harmful per se, as long as it is done smartly, or maybe just like not stupidly. But so like the rules that I tend to use is are I want to see pain really no greater than a 3 to 5 out of 10. And that's a range that we play with for individual people. Some people we try and keep it a lot milder because their pain might be a little bit more irritable and they flare up real easy. Other people we see that they can push into it and it's fine and it doesn't get worse, so we let that number be a little higher. Criteria two is I look for there to be kind of no next day flare ups. So especially with like people who are dealing with chronic pain, we often see that they feel fine in the moment, but then it's that next day where they're like, "What did I do? I wrecked myself." So criteria two is don't have a flare up, and criteria three is how confident do you personally feel? Like like it's not escalating and you feel good about this. If we can check all three of those boxes, I feel pretty good that we're tolerating whatever we're currently doing. And then we will ask the body for a little bit more, assuming that our performance goals are being met as well. And if we're not tolerating, then we make a modification. We pull and we dial back. So we just work with whatever kind of the body's state is at this moment, and we use the criteria to give us a window into what that is and how it's responding to the load that we're putting on it.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And exactly what you said at the start there is in my personal experience is when you've got someone who is a painter and decorator and they're working above head all day and then you're trying to sort out a shoulder injury, that's where it gets hard. But you were saying you would try and kind of get a break to their pain somehow and kind of build that into their day. So give them some sort of easing factor, like as a window where it's not
Yeah,
aggravating. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, there's not a perfect, I mean, there's very rarely a perfect situation, right? Like, and patient education is huge here. Like, I think it's also important that we say, hey, listen, it's okay that you feel some pain. It's okay that you're whenever you're working overhead and you're painting the ceiling, it's okay that we feel some pain. All right. But I need you to think about these other things. Like, is it escalating? Like, where did you start? Was it a kind of a mild ache? And then, we're getting 2 hours into this and it's, man, you're having trouble holding your arm over your head. How do you feel tomorrow? Right? Like, is it getting worse? An analogy that I love to use with my patients is that like recovery from pain is a lot like weight loss in that if you track your weight every single day, you're going to see this like chart that's very jagged and it's going to be up and down, oftentimes quite drastically. But we're just looking for a trend to move in a certain direction over time. So we're looking at averages. And so we want to just try and take the data and smooth it out a little bit. And likewise, like if you had a friend who, had a birthday party and you went out and you had a few beers and some pizza or something, like, yeah, it's probably gonna be high tomorrow, right? But get back on the horse and you're not gonna disrupt the trend too bad. So likewise with recovery and pain, it's like we need to have a conversation about realistic recovery and realistic demands of your life and how hard this is going to be and how slow this might be or how fast this might be, based on like what you have available. What are your resources that are available to get better? Because I don't want to sit here and say like everybody can just get better super quickly. It's like, no, that's not everybody has that privilege of taking time off of work and going light duty and whatnot. Some people are just going to have to work overhead. And so putting some guidelines in place that say, hey, like, let's try and keep your pain tolerable. Let's try to take breaks to the point that it's just not escalating and try to make sure that we're not like seeing the trend move in the wrong direction day after day after day, because those are the things that are likely going to prolong this and make you feel like you're stagnating. And if we're seeing those things, then let's sit down, let's have a conversation about what can you control in your life that opens up opportunities for us to move that trend in the other direction. Because that's my job. My job is to help figure out how do we shift that trend line, you know, in a more favorable direction relative to if you kept doing and living your life exactly the same as you are right now. That's it. Like that's my intervention.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I also find kind of what happens is people's perception of pain because they're still in pain. They kind of come to clinic sometimes thinking, I'm still in pain, but actually they've had less episodes of pain or they're doing more before the pain comes on. So
Hmm.
it's trying to get them to kind of really think about when that pain's coming on, what have you been doing? Because it's then too easy to say, there's been no progress. But actually, yeah, you did a lot more before the pain came on, or the pain is kind of a notch or two lower. So yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Um,
And in those, if you don't mind if I elaborate on that a little bit, in those scenarios, I think that we as clinicians can often maybe get a little bit too hung up on the pain. Like it's like they're injured. Yeah, they're in pain. Pain's a part of this process. Like we know that pain's there. And so one of the things, I think the first things that we can do is we can reframe our questions. And so instead of how's your shoulder today or how's your pain levels today, 0 to 10, where's it at? And like putting, like we put that metric in the center, then it's at the center because we are driving this thing, right? We're driving this car. And instead, how about we reframe that question to, hey, how long were you able to work overhead this week? How long did it take before you really started to feel like the pain was limiting you this week? How much were you able to do on your bench press this week, on your squats this week? How far were you able to run this week? How long were you able to get into the garden this week? Like, let's be more objective and let's center our questions around these activities so that we focus it in on that data point more so than just like, did you have pain? Did you not? Yeah, pain's there. We know that. That's why you're here in this office.
so next question is one that I've always seen across when I did personal training. I saw that I would give someone an exercise program, and they would come back to me saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I've done it." When actually you can look back at the gym records and see they hadn't actually been in as many times as they said they had. And with rehab, I can find that really, really frustrating. So those that skip their rehab routine, how do you try and get people to adhere a bit better? Like, so I think you touched on it earlier and said that you deal with athletes, so they I would think would be a little bit more kind of in tune with their training. But how do you deal with those that are skipping rehab?
Mhm. Uh, Relevance is like it's just a one word answer, I guess, on this one. But I think that the majority of rehab that I see is just not relevant to the patient. And like they can't find the relevance in it. So I think we're often taught rehab from a very bottom up approach, which is to say that like if you have a knee injury and you have a goal of eventually running 10K, then we see you as a knee injury. And so then we are going to give you some TKEs and some body weight sit stands, maybe some light goblet squats, something like that. Probably going to get some clamshells thrown in there and, and some monster walks or something, right? And yeah, that's all well and good. And it's like, it's loading the knee, it's loading the hip, but can the patient see how that gets them to run a 10K? And if they can't, then they're going to ask the question, why am I doing this? How is this getting me to where I want to go? And so whenever I am rehabbing someone or I'm teaching people to rehab, I try to flip that and I say, let's go from a top down approach. The patient wants to run a 10K. All exercise is stress on the body to drive an adaptation. It is force through space and it's prescribed in a certain dosage of volume and intensity. And the whatever exercise you're choosing is simply directing that volume and intensity to certain tissues. It's the vector. So If they can currently run 5K before their knee hurts, why can't we just let running be the rehab? Like it's just force through space directed at tissue. And so let's just titrate the dosage of running. Because if you can run 5K now and you want to get to 10K, well, it seems like the most direct way to do that, to, going by the said principle, is to just do the thing and like prescribe the dosage of that appropriately. And that is really easy to relate to the patient as to how they're going to get better. You're having them do the thing they wanted to do in the first place. Adherence kind of is going to become a non-issue, really. If as long as you're having some communication around how are you feeling with this and how's it going, whatnot. But sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes it's contraindicated or sometimes they're not tolerating it. And so from there, I would look at how do you break that goal activity down to some constituent component that you can draw a direct line to it as to how they get better. So if they can't run, can we do kind of a walk jog interval type of system? Can we get them on a treadmill and have them run on an incline since that's going to reduce forces on the knee? And okay, that doesn't work. All right, can we do some form of hopping so that we're at least like getting some impact on them? Um, and if we have to go all the way back to, squats and lunges and whatever else we're going to do, then let's at least have a really good explanation as to how that's going to work. And so what I'd like to have there is some sort of objective data that either I've put a force gauge on them and I can show them that there's some, some weakness there that we're trying to improve upon. Or I was even better, I was able to test, say, their knee extension and that lit up their knee pain. I'm like, okay, like that caused your pain. So that's why we're doing this over here. Like it's touching the thing that we want it to do. And once this gets better, then we'll be able to progress you over to this thing and then this thing. And so from the very beginning, as I'm thinking backwards, I'm trying to map out this is where you are. And like everything that we're doing builds to here, that then builds to here, that then builds to here, which eventually goes to your goal. So I'm like building this roadmap forward. And even if it's not rehab and it's just fitness, it's like, what is that exercise doing to get them to where they want to go? Right. Otherwise, we need to have a conversation about like, do you say you want this? Do you like the idea of this? Or like, do you want this? And we might need to have that conversation at times too. But in my experience, the problem is most often that we are not creating enough relevance for the patient as to why we are doing what we're doing and why we're asking them to do it. And so it feels very arbitrary. And that's where it ends up kind of getting skipped. And so spend more time up front, either building backwards or demonstrating the value of what you're prescribing. And I think that adherence gets a lot better.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And again, in my experience, if it's someone that is involved in a ball sport, can you involve the ball somewhere? Can you do
Yeah.
something? So, because that's what they're desperate to do is to get their hands on a rugby ball or get their foot on a football. So, can you kind of integrate that in somewhere? Yeah.
And start early, like in the stupidest, simplest way possible. Just start any way you can early. It helps.
So I think this touches. I think we're going on to talk about something that you've just said about with the biome. So the long-term consistency, you would say the best way to get people to juggle the rest of their lives, whether that be work, whether that be children, whether that be other things that they've got going on that are busy, is getting them to see what the goal is and what they're doing to work towards that goal to keep to the plan around a busy life, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, don't get too overzealous with like your exercise prescription. So like I said, if somebody can run, then let them run, right? When I think a lot of this just comes down to like really good communication. right? Spend more time, have good conversations with your patients around how do we build this thing? Let's work together to build this rehab program. I'm bringing my expertise, you're bringing your knowledge of your life because I'm not living your life. I don't know your demands. So I can I can write a rehab program that's super comprehensive and takes an hour and a half every single day, but it means nothing if it doesn't get done, right? And I think as a lot of us in this world, they we have an interest in this stuff, right? Like, and I'll be the first one to tell you, like, I love writing rehab programs that have like nice periodization schemes and fancy progressions and things, but the majority of that is for me because I enjoy it. Most of my patients get along just well with a nice double progression system of like eight, here's a rep range. Once you hit the top of the rep range and it didn't go to failure and your pain tolerance kind of criteria were met, then like let's increase 5 pounds. Like that works. The fancy stuff ends up being for like to keep me interested in doing this day in, day out. And so with kind of our prescription as well, I like to prioritize with the patient. Like, listen, if you only do one thing, if you can only do one thing I ask, it's this. This is the thing. All right. Now, and I think, the Moon Group, who has a lot, they've put out a lot of information about ACL rehab. They do this really, really well. And you can see all of their protocols for their different phases, but they list out exercises as like you need to do these, and then like these are optional ones that will probably enhance your overall recovery, but do them if you can. And so I've tried to take those kind of similar principles into the things I do, which is like, okay, the number one thing that we need to do, let's just say go back to your hamstring there and the running, right? The sprinting. The number one thing that we need to do is get you tolerant to sprinting. And so we need to sprint. And so this is the schedule for that. Like this is a non-negotiable. If you want to work with me, this is a non-negotiable. We have to do this. Now, here there are other things we can do that will likely get you along better and faster. And so here's all this resistance training stuff that we can also do. And here's this agility stuff that we can also do. Um, and like, tell me what feels like it's going to get done and what works within your schedule. Are you currently going into the gym? Are you not? Are we doing this from home? What do we have access to? Um, so those are all things that I that's like one thing I'll do is just prioritize and like what's our big rock? Like what's that one thing that like has to be done? The other thing I guess that I'll often do is like try and get an idea of what their current routine looks like so that I can then build my stuff to just integrate on top of it. So if I get somebody who is kind of a gym rat and is currently going to the gym 4 days a week, then like I'm like, what's your training split look like? Because if you're doing something like an upper lower split and we're rehabbing your knee, um, then like I'm just gonna maybe I want to build out these lower body days for you. And like your uppers just kind of stay the way they are. So that way we don't shift your schedule very much. Um, or likewise, maybe we start if we're like in the earlier kind of lower loading phases where this stuff's not really hard. It's just kind of irritable. Then maybe we can superset some stuff in between other exercises. And so it just integrates into the life you're already doing. So I think um, you know, there's some decent, uh, there's some decent research there around whenever you're trying to build a habit to like anchor it to something you're already doing.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to even get somebody to do something at home, then it's like, okay, when can are you going to do this? What are you going to anchor this to in your day-to-day routine? So it's like after I eat breakfast, I'm going to go for that walk. Or, after I get the baby up, I'm going to I'm going to do this stretch or whatever it is, like where are we going to anchor that into the routine so it gets done?
Yeah. I mean, I very similar to that. I'll say to people sometimes things like, if you're chopping veg or you're waiting for a kettle to boil or something, then you can be doing your calf raises, or you can be doing when you're watching television, can you sit and do maybe something on a foam roller or and just so it is linked to that activity while you're doing this. You're already kind of wasting time. Can you do this at the same time, like a door stretch
Yeah.
for the pecs while they're waiting for something to boil or something like that. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Like you don't get to scroll social media unless you're stretching your hamstrings or something, Like
Yeah,
like
brilliant. I like that. So coming to more of a preventative. So I love the term prehab. I think I was at university when people started using that word prehab. Once you've got someone to the point of they're either over that injury or you've got someone coming to you saying that they want to prevent injury, is there anything that you want them to be able to achieve? Like, so if an average person, they're not currently injured, but they just want to make sure they don't get injured, what sorts of things would you do?
I'd ask him, what is it that you want to do? Like,
Yeah,
just describe this like idealistic self to me. What's this idealistic version of you that you anticipate yourself getting injured on? Um, because I mean, if we're talking like I never want to just like bend down, pick something up, and not feel a pull in my back or something, it's like, I don't know. You know, maybe it's probably a good idea that you practice like bending down and picking things up every now and then. Deadlifts might be a decent idea, right? I think the easy answer there is resistance training, right? It's going back to kind of where we started. I look at these things as this is your current state and this is where we're trying to get you to, right? It just so happens that we we have this idea of what normal looked like for you prior to this injury, and we're trying to more so figure out what this new state looks like, and that's where um, a lot of our efforts go is to figure out where are you currently. In more of a preventative scenario, you kind of know where you are now. It's more so figuring out where do you want to go. And really, then the process, I don't think it changes too much. It's just that now we're just continuing to build forward. And you just don't really have pain as like a criteria that we need to worry about so much. So if you want to get into running or you want to get into cycling or you want to take a vacation and you're going to be like walking a lot more or something, then like break that down. Are you really ready to go ham on that? Or maybe do you need to ease in to some of that? Are there other things that you could maybe do to better prepare yourself for those sorts of things? Because humans are impatient. Our goals change pretty often. We get an interest in, fancy shiny things really fast, and then especially when it's fun, we tend to like really rush the process. We're seeing it a lot right now with pickleball. We have like blown up here, especially in Florida, and people love it. And we're seeing tons of people that come in with injuries because like they were previously pretty sedentary or they were just like going out for walks and stuff. And now they're out here playing this sport 5 days a week because they love it. And they aren't doing, they weren't really ready to dive into it at that level. And so it's like, yeah, maybe a month of like an on-ramp process there probably would have done you really, really well. But the sport can definitely like be the prehab if you dose it correctly. But there's also cross-training things that probably would help you as well. Yeah. So like, weight training, cardio training, classic S&C stuff that would probably be pretty good. But it starts with what do you want to do?
yeah. No, that's great. And I know that I know that from personal experience of going, I can do five-a-side football again. I haven't done it for 15 years, but I'm going to go and do it. And you just go straight out and do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, wonder why you've got an injury. So it's kind of working
Yeah. I
backwards
mean,
to say, in a few weeks, I want
absolutely.
to go and play football. Maybe I should start doing a little bit of exercise first and start
Yeah.
conditioning my body before I do. Yeah.
And another thing is like pay attention. Just like wake up and pay attention before and don't ignore things. I have a 7-year-old and we're at that phase in life where like he wants to throw the ball. And so I played baseball, growing up. And so, I have this like preconceived notion that like, oh, I can just chuck that ball. That's fine. I've done that for so much. That's just second nature to me. And not realizing like, yeah, you know what, like you haven't actually done that in a decade, at a like volume level. And so of course, the thing he wants is like throw it as hard and as far as you can, and so like I do, I'm rearing back and I'll throw it for him. And then my shoulders kind of sore the next day. It's like, huh, yeah, I guess so, right? No, I'm not gonna like micromanage that and be like, oh, I'm not gonna play with my kid because I'm afraid of getting injured or whatnot. But when he wants to do it again the next day, I am saying, hey, like, I'm not gonna like, let's keep it a little closer today. Like let's just keep it easy today because I'm listening. And so this is what I do in rehab with clients is you we stress an environment, look for a response, and then we modify the stress. So it's just a feedback loop. You have your current environment, which is your body, right? Stress it, that provides you a response. How hard was it? Did I feel like I was on death's door? Was it easy? What was my RPE? What was my heart rate? What was my pain level? These are all things we call internal loads. They're just responses to stress. You then need to analyze that response and that your analysis of that, which is like, was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing? Was that too much? Was that too little? Can I do more? Should I do less? That makes you modify the stress like for the next round through. And then you look at the response again and whoop, 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 we go. So, you know, the first time he asked me to pick up the ball, cool, we chuck the ball, right? Stress. And then my shoulder's really sore the next day. And so now I recognize that. All right. So what maybe should I do? Maybe not go and chuck the ball at high volumes again another day because like my body already told me, wow, that was new. And so now I'm going to give my body some time to adapt to that and I'm going to dial back and we're going to throw a little less intensity, not quite as far, not quite as hard. Um, and then we'll see how we go with that and then we'll keep the circle going forever.
Yeah, and I think you said it right at the start was patient education. So not just teaching them about kind of types of exercise, but teaching them about pain and about their body and how do things feel and when did I start to feel that pain? What was I doing? And so I find it hard to get buy-in for, but sometimes I'll say to people about keeping a pain diary, even if you can't literally keep a pain diary, kind of act as if you were going to, so you can go, right, now it's hurting. What have I just been doing? And kind of, even if you just make a mental note of, right, I was doing this thing. Okay, that's when the pain came on. Rather than just, like you said, bull in a china shop, just going and playing a full round of football when you haven't done it. Just start listening to your body a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, cool. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So let me go for one more. Uh, if you could give advice to your younger self. So I think one of the things that can be frustrating for me personally, again, going into working as a therapist, is you've not got the experience and a lot of things you learn as you go on, either something that have not quite worked out how you wanted it to, or something went wrong. So as you gain experience, you gain more knowledge. But if you could go back to your younger self, is there anything that you wish you'd have known or anything you'd say to your younger self?
I think I would tell myself to really focus in on spend more time talking to people and like kind of what I mentioned earlier, really dive into what are the behaviors that they've adopted since their pain started. Because I think that is oftentimes the first like real window that you have into helping somebody. It's like you can really make some pretty immediate changes and some really immediate impacts in on their life by just getting their behaviors changed. And so I think coming out of school, I felt, yeah, well, it's my job to fix stuff, right? Like we find the deficit, find the thing that's wrong with them, and like that's probably physical. Like find the physical thing, find the mobility deficit, find the strength deficit, find whatever it is. Um, but like the longer I do this, the more I realize that you know, the first thing we gotta get in line is that you, as the patient, are engaging in behaviors that are conducive to your own recovery. And that, if you are your own biggest enemy, then this is a problem and we need to fix that. Um, Sometimes to no fault to your own, right? Being anxious and, being a little fearful, that's natural. That's normal, right? Whenever you're in pain every single day and it really, really hurts, like you get a little down about that. That's normal. That's natural, right? But we need to refocus on like, where do we go next? What is actually going to be conducive to getting us forward? And likewise, when do we need to pull back? When do we need to be a bit more objective and say, hey, like 2 steps back for 10 steps forward is the way to go. And so if I were to go back in time, I would really put much more emphasis onto what are my patients doing that might be keeping their trend line kind of stagnated. And then what is like that lowest hanging fruit that we can start to intervene on to shift that trend line in the direction that we want it to go.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, kind of phrase of kind of getting small wins, pick up some of them small wins, so it kind of
Yeah.
starts to get their
Yeah.
buy, and they're going, brilliant, I'm starting to achieve something. Yeah,
Yeah. I call it clinical momentum.
yeah, brilliant. Love that. Love that. So I think we've come to the end, and I think just a huge thank you, really. Like I said, I am coming to this from a gap where I've not been involved in the therapy world. I've been off. I had an illness, and I'm coming back to things. And my idea of reaching out to some people that are huge in the industry, I honestly didn't think I'd get any response. And the fact that you've agreed to come on and talk to me, I'm really grateful, and hopefully be something that helps just someone. If it's someone starting out as a student and they get some ideas from it, or if it's a patient who says, okay, I'm not going to be so hard on myself, then that would be amazing.
Yeah. Hopefully, anything that we can do to, make it all better, like rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Yeah, yeah, and getting some good messages out there for people. So from some trustworthy voices is what I want. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.